Everybody. It's so good to see you all on this Tuesday. I hope you are enjoying your day and you had a good Monday as well. And hopefully you had some time to sit down and look over your goals and make some new goals for potentially this week. So yesterday I mentioned that we're going to talk about 7 different habits of happy people. What are the 7 things that people do that can make them happy and help them live happy lives? And so today we're going to talk about the first habit, which is relationships. And I want today to be a little bit of self guided work. So I'm going to give a nice overview and then give you a link to a really short reading about this habit and how you can improve in this habit. So let's dig right in. So the big picture with relationships when it comes to happiness is that studies have found that people who have at least one close friendship are much happier than others. Now I've bolded and made in all caps the word close because it's really important that you consider as close as not just okay I talk to them often, but it's also about the depths of that relationship. What kinds of things are you talking about? Is this someone that you've disclosed personal secrets with? Is this someone that knows you in and out, that you're comfortable sharing deep things with and sharing your emotions with? Those are the types of things that can define a close relationship. So it's important that you kind of think beyond just, oh, I like this person, I see them a lot. It's more so, what is the depth of that relationship? What is the bigger value of that relationship? Another part of the relationship's habit is that self disclosure really can help relieve stress and depression. So I've added a comment here that self disclosure requires having someone that you can openly share with. Okay, so self disclosure is that ability to be able to let out your frustrations, let out your feelings, talk about your dreams, talk about your goals, all of these things that sometimes we hold within ourselves if we don't have someone else to share it with. So it's really important to have that person that you know you can talk to. And similar to how I talked yesterday about how writing your goals down kind of allows it to manifest outside of your brain. That disclosure piece, so that ability to be open and share out is also really important in letting you process the things that are going on, and having someone else that you can do that with makes it less of a individual singular process and it becomes a shared process. And then lastly, active constructive responding, which is also known as active listening, is a great way to cultivate positive emotions and then to make those relationships deeper. So if you find that, oh, this relationship's really good, but I know it could be stronger, one way to do that is to really strongly listen and then respond in a way that has shown the person that you have heard what they said, you feel what they're saying, and that your care for them is present in your answer. And we'll go over that more as we talk further. But just kind of keep these 3 things, these big picture ideas in mind as you think about that relationship's habit. So the need to have close friendships, the need to release and let out things that are going on or things that you're processing, that having that strong relationship, a way to get there is through active listening. Okay, so Aristotle came up with 3 types of friendships, and these 3 types of friendships actually have been solidified by psychological research as of recent. So we can see this connection between older ancient thought and current research. So there's friendships of utility. Utility you can think of like use or a tool. Friendships of pleasure, and then friendships of good. And I put down here, excuse me, unconditional positive regard. And unconditional positive regard, we talked about this in abnormal psych. And as you think about this ability to see someone and to think positively about them, to care about them, no matter what, is a key to that one. And we'll talk about that a little more. But keep those ideas in mind. So when you think about a friendship of utility, you can think, what can this person do for me? Okay. Is there a mutual benefit for this friendship, right? Is there something that I can gain from having this friendship? The problem with these types of friendships is they're considered level 1 and they don't last because if the need goes away and the person kind of sucks, it's like, well, I don't really see value there anymore. So an example could be, oh, let's go to the drawing board just because I like to draw. I mean, I don't necessarily like to draw, meaning I'm good at art, but it's kind of fun to do something different and spice up the video a little bit. So let's imagine you go off to college and you need to go to the store and you didn't take your car to college because you went far away and you meet a guy and he has a car. Oh, this is going to be the worst drawn car ever. This is like in the little children's books cars. Is that an antenna? Oh, you'll get the point. There's a window. There's another window. Okay. So here is the car, and here's the guy, and here's you. You need to go to Walmart. Unfortunately, you don't have a car, and Walmart's kind of far. So you meet this guy who has a weird looking car. Nonetheless, it's a car. So he becomes, or can become, a friend of utility because you need him for something. It may be that, like, in your initial reactions, he's a kind person. So this doesn't necessarily mean that their only value is use. However, the initial connection, the first reason why you connect with them is because there's some benefit. Maybe they help you with tutoring, or, you're in a club together and it's beneficial to be close to someone, or you're in a class and they're a really good study buddy, right? Any of these things can lead to having a friend of utility. But that's kind of the surface basic level. I am friends with this person because I need something from them or they need something from me. And that's how we established our relationship. So, next relationships are relationships of pleasure. These are simple questions like, do you like being around this person? Does being around them make you happier? Okay. These relationships are pretty good, right? They last a little longer. The problem is, if things get tough or hard, it's still pretty easy to walk away from this relationship. This can be someone who's really funny. Okay, so you hang around them because they're really funny, or you hang around them because they have something cool, right? Not necessarily something that you want, but you're like, oh, hey, they have some like cool stuff that I also enjoy, so I'm gonna hang around them, right? I'm gonna start sitting at lunch with them because they're really funny. Again, that's not a terrible friendship to have. So don't think that if you have a friend who is a friendship of pleasure, you're like, oh man, I can't be friends with them. No, not at all. However, when we think of the word close and how those close friendships are what allow us to have that real good, true happiness, this does not qualify because there's nothing deeper than the fact that you enjoy being around them for some reason. It is a requirement, I would argue, for a deeper relationship, but it's not. It can't be the only thing that's there. So here's the last level, and this is where you want to be ultimately for that close friendship. Now, I think I should say it's not important that you have all of your relationships be close, deep friendships or friendships of good, okay? Some of your friendships can be friendships of utility or friendships of pleasure, depending on the time and the place and the person. So don't feel pressured to have every single friendship meet a high standard. But when we think about friendships of good, we're thinking about unconditional love. Okay. So, regardless of what you've done, regardless of how circumstances change, this is someone who sticks by your side and who stays with you as a friend just because of who you are. Okay. So, that's one of the first things a relationship of good or a friendship of good has to have. The second thing is trust. So, knowing that you can talk to that person, knowing that that person can come to you for anything, and then reliability. Knowing no matter what the circumstances, that person will be there, that they won't walk out when things get hard, that even if they don't have any more utility or use to you, you still want to be friends with them. So these relationships require mutual sacrifice, right? So both people are going to have to give something up at some point or multiple things up throughout the relationship. It just really depends on what kinds of circumstances change or how people change, right? A lot of that comes into play. For a lot of you, you can think about going to college or going somewhere else after high school. That will require some mutual sacrifice, okay? Self control is also something that is important. So, holding secrets and trust, like you have to be able to know if I'm going to share it up with this person, they're not going to run and tell someone else. Okay. They're not going to go and expose you to a bunch of people, but you absolutely know that you can trust them. But you also have to control yourself and say, I can't let any of this information out. Sometimes, especially, not even especially in high school, this happens all the way through adulthood. Someone tells you something and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really good info, or this is really fascinating, I'd love to tell someone else. Doesn't cut it. Okay, that is not a friendship of good. That is not a friendship of unconditional love, and it breaks that trust bond which is required for these types of relationships. And ultimately, within this, it's this value of knowing that no matter what, someone loves you just for being you. That is a really special feeling. That is a really special human experience. We are wired to, excuse me, we are wired to crave that, and when we get it, it feels really good. Okay. And finally, I just want to touch on this idea of growth, that friendships of utility or pleasure can lead to friendships of good. Right, so there's not this concept. And I think I talk about this a lot last semester, and want to continue this semester, this idea that things often are not one or the other, black or white, right? We're not living on it's more of a spectrum, okay? So where you can fall along and you can say, my relationship has utility, but it also has pleasure, right? So it's not just a friendship of utility, it's not just a friendship of pleasure. We also know that those two types of friendships can lead to friendships of good. Now, certainly it will take longer to go from a friendship of utility straight to a friendship of good without that pleasure interspersed, okay? And Aristotle really believed that these things took work and that they took years. I personally would argue that I don't think it takes years. However, the key is intentionality. Okay, being intentional about what you want that relationship to be, where you want it to go, and making that clear to the person. That is tough. To be able to talk about something like that is not easy for everyone, especially if you didn't grow up having conversations like that. So know that I resonate with you if you're like, oh, that's a weird, like touchy, kind of thing to talk about. I get it. I've been there. That was me. That was a hard conversation to have. But you realize there's a lot more fulfillment and joy in your life when you can have those conversations because those relationships can be stronger. And really, kindness is a big part of that, right? The Just to show basic human kindness. Something I noticed at our school is people are walking in the hallways. There's very few times where someone stops to say hello to someone, and I get that part of it is like the building's huge. There's a lot of people here. I got to get to, got to get somewhere, but there's some value in even a simple like exchange of eyes and smile that can really change the dynamic of a relationship and possibly change someone's day. And so I think considering those small acts of kindness that you can do to help foster those relationships is also important. Okay, so this is a longer. There's a couple instructions here, so if you need to pause and read through, that's fine. I'll read through it, but feel free to pause it. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is I've put a link in the video description. So to tell you if I'm pointing right, it should be like right there. And I want you to read about relationships. Just read this page, okay? If you're extra ambitious, at the end of the article, it says learn more about relationships and happiness. You can click any of those links to go deeper on this specific habit, okay? What I want you to do is to evaluate your current relationships. Just choose a good handful of some and then put them into one of the three categories that we talked about. Okay. So if you're like, oh, I have this friendship, but it's probably more utility based, you don't have to share this with anyone, right? That's not the point of this. It's more of a self reflection piece. So place them in there. And then I want you to reflect on where you've placed people and consider, are you building a strong relationship with them, or are you just letting it linger for a temporary benefit, right? Are they your friend because you genuinely value who they are, or are they friend because you don't want to sit at lunch by yourself, or because you want to be able to go hang out with people on the weekend and you need friends to do that? Think about it. Just reflect. Don't have to write it yet. Just think like, what kind of relationship is this, okay? And then I want you to use the link in the description to figure out how to strengthen relationships that you want to move into relationships of good. And I'm emphasizing this because you don't have to want them all to move to that third level of relationships. There can just be a couple. If there is one or two people, you should write just to yourself. This could be part of a journal entry. What are you going to do to strengthen that relationship? Based on that video, what are you going to do to strengthen that relationship? Okay, to get it to that relationship of good, because it takes work and intentionality. If you'd like to participate on Google Classroom, potential things could look like questions for how to build those relationships. So if after you hear this video, after you read the link, if you're still having some questions, please feel free to ask those. Any other questions that you have, obviously, too. But really the focus of today, I want you to think about your relationships in your life and your friendships, and being able to find that close relationship is really a really important thing. So tomorrow, we are going to move on to the second habit. But for today, I just want you to focus on the relationships habit, reflecting on your relationships, and thinking about how can I move those really important ones up to that top third level. I hope you're having a great time away and still engaging with your various classes and teachers. I know there's other teachers doing videos as well, so please check those out and just let us know if you need anything. We miss you, and hopefully we'll see you soon.